Well, hello. Today we are going to make denim pouches. This is the size that we're going to make tonight on my PE 900. This is a 5x7 embroidery machine by Brother. This machine can do this size and this size, but the material that I already have cut out is for this smaller size. Now, if you check the description, it will show you the link to the file to make this bag, and you'll also find the link to where you can purchase the rhinestone overlay. So the link in the description will have the link to the website Designs by Little B, where you can purchase the pouch, and the rhinestone overlay template that I made on my website, hotfixpix.store. The links for both of those is in the description. So let's get started because I want this to be as quick as possible. Now, I'm not going to be able to completely show you the embroidery process. So when we get to doing the embroidery, I'm going to stop and pause the video and just go back to the steps that you need to take. But the embroidery is pretty much self-explanatory once you get started. All right. The things that you'll need is 2 pieces of fabric that's denim. That's going to be the outside, the front and the back of the pouch. You don't have to use denim, but that's what makes it look like a jeans pocket. The thinner the denim, the easier it will be to turn these processes, these projects inside out. Just FYI. You don't have to. You can use thick denim, but I'm just saying. Okay. And then you need 2 pieces for the inside lining of your pouch. This is quilter's cotton. That's all it is. You can pick any design, it doesn't matter. These pockets are fully lined. As you see, there's fabric on the inside so that when you put your change, you don't see any of the stitching inside this pouch whatsoever, either one of them. Both of them are fully lined with coordinating fabric. You need a zipper. The zipper needs to be, it can be longer than the project, it just can't be shorter than the project is called for. And when you download the file for this design, it will have the PDF with the materials that you need. And if I remember, I'll try and put a quick blurb for the 4x4 and a quick blurb for the 5x7 right here in the video so that you'll see the materials needed, that you can pause and look at it without having to go to the PDF. But I only have time to show the 5x7 and the 4x4. Sorry. All right. So you have your 2 pieces of denim, you have your 2 pieces of your lining fabric, you have your zipper. The other thing is your coordinating thread. For this particular project, I'm using green to match my zipper. And then you also need your stitching for the front facing. I like to use the gold because that's what kind of mimics the old school denim jeans. They usually use that gold thread. So that's why I have this color thread for that part of the embroidery. And then I also have some extra little embellishments for after we're done, and some ribbon to hold the key fob stuff on the side. This part is optional. You don't have to have a key fob. You can just have just a pocket by itself like this with no extra hanging off the side. That's entirely up to you. You don't have to have that. Beyond that, the only other extra thing I would suggest is some bonding material. So this is like Stitch Witchery, or it's hem tape, or you can use heat and bond, something like that to close it up, or you can hand stitch it shut. And I'll show you where in this process that will take. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the project. Aside from these obvious things, you'll want to hoop. Tearaway is the easiest material to use. You can use cutaway, but tearaway is the easiest. So let's get started. The first step that the project is going to do is the placement stitch, and I'll show you that now. So this is where you should be now. You stitched the first stitch, and this is what's called a placement stitch. The placement stitch shows you where to place your fabric and your material. So the first thing that we're going to place is our zipper. And you remember, I said your zipper can be longer than your project, but it can be shorter than your project. So at this point, we're going to place the zipper on the design, this placement stitch in this square right here. And your zipper pull, this part right here needs to be face up. So we're going to leave it zipped, but we're just going to lay it right here in between those lines. See, it's a perfect fit for that zipper. Okay. And then we're going to tape it in place. Okay. It's taped in place. It's not going anywhere. You see my zipper pull is over here off to the side. It's face up. It's in those lines. And so now let's stitch our next step. All right, so it stitched this line first, then it went up here and stitched this line here. And what that did was lock down that zipper. So technically we could take the tape off if we wanted to. So now this is the part where people get really, really confused. So I'm gonna try to show this as clearly as I can. So now that the zipper is stitched in place, that was step number 2. Now we're going to step number 3. Step number 3 is where we're going to stitch our lining in place. So this is the back. This is the front. I took it off the machine this way. This is the back. Okay. So now we want to take our lining fabric. This should be a square. So I have the pretty side up, not pretty side. So we're going to put this face down on top of the back side of this hoop. Now look at where I'm putting this, and I wish I had a darker bobbin so that you could see, but here's the outline of the pocket, right? See the zipper? You can see the shadow of the green zipper, the back of it. Take this and lay it face down and cover the whole zipper, just like this. We're going to cover it so that you cannot see that zipper at all. No zipper, no stitch lines. The only stitch lines you see is going down and back up. That's it. You don't even see that crossway zipper because we covered it up. So that's what you want. Face down and cover all of those stitches up top. And then we're going to tape this in place. And you want to tape it pretty good because you don't want this flopping forward. It'll mess up the project. So tape it down. And this is just painter's tape. And I should have said painter's tape is needed too, but you can use other things, but painter's tape is the easiest. So see, now this is taped down. And so when I turn it over and turn it back, see, it's not all over the place. So that's what we want. So we have this taped down. So now let's turn this back over. And now we want to take our first piece of denim fabric. See, this is the wrong side. This is the right side for me. Okay, and I'm going to turn it right side down, and I'm going to lay it the exact same way where I'm covering the zipper and the top of this project. So I'm going to lay it down just like this, and I'm covering the zipper. Notice you don't see the zipper at all. You don't see any of the stitches nor any part of that zipper, but you do see these stitches. Okay, so again, it's pretty side of the fabric down, and you're covering the zipper and all of the stitches. That's really important. And now you'll tape this down and put it back on the machine and run stitch number 3, which is going to run a stitch right here, and it's going to lock both these pieces of fabric in place. And before I put this on and stitch it, I need to remind you, when you put this back on your machine before you stitch stitch number 3, make sure that this fabric, you can still see it up here at the top, because sometimes you'll put it on the machine and this will fold under. And so when you go to stitch it, it might mess up your fabric. So make sure both of these pieces are laid up just like this. Okay. All right, so I stitched that single line. It went over and it came back and it stopped. Perfect. So that was stitch number 3. Stitch number 4. Now what we want to do is take this denim fabric and fold it down into place. So now this is going to be the front of our bag, but don't move this fabric. We want this to stay just like it is. It's stitched down now, so that's good, but we want it to stay up and out of the way. So now this is still peeking up out the top. This is folded down into place. And so now what we're going to do, the next step, step number 4, is going to tack this down so that we can start doing our decorative stitching. Okay, so now I folded this down. Did you make sure that this was still up when you went to stitch? Because see, look, that part flipped up on me, but that doesn't hurt anything. It's this part that would have been upsetting if that had a stitched down. So make sure that that's still good. And so now that you see that this has stitched that outline, now we can do our decorative stitch. And that's with this color, in my opinion. You can use whatever color you want. So I'm going to go ahead and thread my machine with this color. And now that I have the gold on the machine, I'm going to go ahead and stitch all of the decorative stitching that goes on the front of this pocket. Now, while that's stitching, I'm going to take the moment to tell you that you also, at this point, if you wanted to put a name down here, you can add it at this point, either in your software program or after the decorative stitching stitches, you can stop it, which this is step number 5. Let it finish step number 5, go back out into the main part, add your lettering in there, move it around, center it, and stitch your lettering. How, I can't teach that part in this video, but this is the part where you would add your anything else, any other embellishment stitching wise to go on here. But we're adding rhinestones, so we're not going to add any other stitches. So I'm going to let this yellow decorative stitching finish, and then we'll move forward. Now that this stitching is done, I'm going to take a moment and go ahead and press the seams and kind of give it a nice crisp look. This is just something I'm doing. You don't have to do this. And these pressing pads that I got from Designs in Machine Embroidery make it easy to do, where I can press it right there while it's still in the hoop and not hurt anything. Okay. So now that this part is done, we've got the super cute jean looking stitching on the front. Now what I'm going to do is take this part and I'm going to pull it down into place because we are ready to move forward. So now that this is down into place, I'm going to tape some more and make sure that this is held in place until we finish our next few stitching. Okay. All right. Now I folded the back lining down into place. That's all I did. Remember, it was folded up. Now we're folding it down and you can see the pretty side. And then over here, you see the front of our stitching. So from now on, I need to make sure that this is held down in place. So now at this point, I also want to take a moment and pull my zipper to the middle. I'm going to do that at this point in the project. Okay. So my zipper is now in place. It's at the center of our design. I have this in place. Make sure it's in the zipper. In the center so that it doesn't get hit by anything. And now what's going to happen is it's going to stitch a placement stitch right here for the part for our key ring stuff. So if you want to have a key ring, then you need to stitch this part. If you don't, then you can skip it. But I'm going to cut off maybe about 2 inches or 3 inches or so, not a whole lot of ribbon. If you cut it at an angle, that'll help keep it from fraying, or you can use a lighter of some sort to burn the edge to make sure that it doesn't fray. Fold it in half. All right. And once it's folded in half, it'll give you a little loop like so. And we're going to put this back on the machine and it's going to stitch a stitch that's right over here on the side. That's a placement stitch to show us where to attach this. And I'm going to let it go ahead and stitch in that yellow color so it's easier for you to see. Okay, so it placed the placement stitch for our ribbon. This is another piece of painter's tape. And so here is my ribbon. Again, I'm going to fold it back in half because it came open when I sat it down. And now the loop part, I want to be on the inside over here with the zipper. See, here's the placement stitch that's stitched right there. See this yellow? So we're going to lay this where the loop is to the inside. And then we're going to have the tails of the ribbon to the outside. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, here's the loop where it's folded. This is the fold of the ribbon, and here are the tails. Now I'm going to put it back on, and it's going to stitch a tack down stitch right here to lock that ribbon in place. All right, we're coming into the home stretch. So our ribbon is tacked down. Our zipper is in the center. Make sure that that zipper is pulled to the center. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take our denim fabric, our second piece of denim. And now what we're going to do is take this and lay it over the top of everything on the front of this hoop. Make sure that all of the stitches are covered. So here's the yellow decorative stitches, but see the dark green down here? That needs to be covered up too. And then up here, you want to make sure that that zipper is completely covered and you've got plenty to spare over the top. Don't line it all the way up like we were doing before. Don't line it. Just leave it generously over the top of everything. And now we're going to put this back on the machine and do our stitch number 8. Okay, so stitch number 8, and this is what we have. We have our 2 pieces of denim now. This one is facing forward, but this one is face down, and the entire thing is stitched all around. Your zipper is to the inside, and your key fob is to the inside, your ribbon. Okay, so all of that is done. Now on the back side, this is what you have. You can still see the top part of the zipper, and you can see that this is folded down into place, and you can barely see my stitching on here, but doesn't matter because at this point what we're going to do is take this second lining piece, and we are now going to cover all of this stitching, every bit of it, just like we did for the front. You want to make sure every bit of stitching is covered on the back as well. Put it back on the machine, and we're going to stitch step number 9. Actually, before we stitch step number 9, this needs to be taped in place because you don't want it to move when you turn this hoop over. But it is pretty side down, wrong side facing up. Let's tape this down on the outer edges. Now we're ready to put this back on the machine just like this. And then we're going to make sure that this fabric stays up out the way and make sure that that's still flat on the hoop once we start stitching. So this is what we now have. You have a denim on the front, right side down. And notice there's just one line of stitching right here, but there's 2 all the rest of the way around. And now let's flip it over. And our fabric back here, you can see it's stitched all the way around. This is the other lining piece, and it left an opening right here. We're done. That's it. No more embroidery machine. You also have one more stitch step, which is number 10, but we're going to ignore that. That's built in to help make sure that the machine doesn't bump the zipper. Okay, so I'm going to grab my fabric plus zipper cutting scissors, and I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to cut it back here because I want to make sure that I can see this opening. And I'm going to start cutting right here. And what I want to do is cut kind of close to those stitches, but I definitely don't want to cut all the way up against those stitches. Okay. So a good 1/8 of an inch away from those stitches is about where you want to be. Any closer and that cotton fabric can fray, and it can fray past your stitches and then cause you to have a hole in your project. And at this point, if you didn't move your zipper to the center of your project, then you're going to be sad and you're going to cut through your zipper and it won't be any good. Okay, so now we're to where the opening is right here, right? So as you see, I cut an 1/8 all the way around, but when I get right here, I need to leave myself a tab, okay? So I'm going to cut up this way out some to where I'm more of a 1/2 an inch away from my stitch line and come back in. See how I have a little tab there? And I'll show you what that's for. So the rest of this, we can take this and throw it all away. We're done with this part of the project. We're done also with the embroidery machine. So I'm going to scooch that back. And so now this is what we have. All right. And if you notice, this is the lining. There's an opening there in between the two linings. So this small 4x4 is a little difficult to turn inside out, especially if you have like arthritis or something. So I just kind of reach all the way across to a further away point and kind of push it through a little bit to give me something to start with, to start pulling, to start trying to pull this all the way through. You're going to fight with it, especially the 4x4 size. Again, if you have, arthritis or something like that, then this will be a little bit tough. But the thinner denim is why I recommended that for this kind of a project, especially the smaller pouches. So it'll make it not as difficult to turn inside out. And just be a little careful with your quilter's cotton, because the cotton can be kind of thin. And because it's thin, it can tear easily. So to help you push the bulk through, kind of pull some of that bulk and just kind of work it that way. I find it myself easier to pull than it is to push. So I'm going to fight with this and then come back when it's turned inside out. Okay, that didn't take me super long. So I'm finishing turning this inside out. And the reason why I came back to this point is so that I can show you, make sure you poke your corners pretty good. Do not use something sharp to poke out your corners. Like I wouldn't use these sharp scissors that'll poke a hole in your project. So you can get a dowel or some kind of blunt stick and poke, push some of this stuff through. But poke out all of your little corners as much as you possibly can. Just like so. So that it'll give it a nice crisp look when you finish your project. All right, I'm trying not to make this project take too long. So, okay. I want this pushed out a little bit more, but it ain't want to cooperate completely. All right, so now that I have this is what you're looking at. There's this side, there's that side, and here is the opening, and here's the tab fabric that we made. So tuck that back in to where it kind of runs along the stitch line, and then tuck in this side as well. And as you see, it kind of closes out the pocket. And so it looks kind of like the shape of the pocket. You see it? So that's what we're going for. And at this point, this is where I use my hem tape. If you have fabric glue, that could work as well. But you want to close this opening. You can also hand stitch if you are good at hand stitching. I'm not. So I use this tape. It's a heat activated tape, kind of like Heat and Bond. And you can get it at, most stores where you can get sewing supplies. And I tucked that, see that film? I tucked it down in this flap. And so I'm going to use my Cricut mini press and I'm going to hold it there. It doesn't take long, about 5-6 seconds. And I'm also going to go around and kind of press my seams a little bit. Be careful up here by your zipper because your zipper is nylon or plastic and it can melt. So when I press like this, it kind of gives it a nice crisp finish once you're done. Okay, and so now my pocket is closed. That way, when you put your change or stuff in here, it won't fall down in that hole and get lost. And so now this is your tearaway stabilizer. We want to tear this away. See, I just pulled at it in any spot and it should tear. You got your good, nice tearaway. Whoops. And so I'm going to tear down here. Tear up here. Tear down here. And you want to kind of tear all of that because your zipper can get stuck on that if it's not torn all the way out. And so here's your zipper. And now what I'm going to do is kind of push this out and shake it so that I can get that tab to fall down right there. See the tab? It wasn't there before. I want it to fall down. And I'm going to grab it and I'm going to push it. It's easier to do with the tab if you get that. And now we're going to turn this inside out through the open zipper. And there you have your pocket. Look how cute that is. Super duper, super duper cute. There's your denim pocket. How adorable is that? And there's the back. So to clean this up, like for instance, if you are going to put this up for sale for customers, then I would just do kind of a light press, barely press over the zipper part. I wouldn't press too hard back there over your zipper, but give it a nice press to even get those seams nice and open so that it presents really well. And there you have your denim pocket. It looks great. So I'm going to add my embellishments later and show you what that looks like after. I probably would add some pretty stones to this. 9 times out of 10, I'll probably go with pine. Let's see. Here's pine. That's a pretty shade of green right there that I think would look great with that darker green rhinestone. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to put the embellishments on there and then I'll come right back. Well, I'll come back before pressing those stones on to show you how that process works a little bit. All right, so I brushed in my stones. And again, this template is available on our hotfixfix.store so that you can get all of the sizes for all of the pouches. And then I'm going to get some transfer tape. Make sure my heat press is on. It was not. Now, if you don't have a heat press, you technically could use the Cricut mini press for this. You know what? Let's use the Cricut mini press instead of the heat press. All right, and so we've picked up the stones and we're going to lay this on the pouch and it should fit within the lines. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm gonna hold it up here in a moment so that you can see how it fits right in those lines. And the tape kind of holds it in place. Now, this is why I would recommend the heat press, because the heat press can press more of an area on this instead of just a little bit at a time, and you press once and you're done. But with the mini press, you kind of got to put some force down on it, and you got to press more than one time to make sure that you get all of the stones pressed into place. But apply some moderate force on here, and it'll still adhere to your project. Now, me personally, I'm gonna press more than once, all the way over, all over again, because sometimes we don't have enough pressure to go on here to make sure that those stones are on there and adhered really good. But once they're on there, they're on there. And there we have our stones on the pouch. How cute. OMG. All right. And so now I'm going to grab a jump ring. Actually, I'm going to grab 2 jump rings. And I'm going to open this one and put this on there and put this on there and then close it. Sorry, I know this is probably the boring part. And then I'm going to get another jump ring for my tassel and open this one. And I'm going to go into that same one because I want these two to stay together forever. And then we'll close this one up. All right, and so there's my tassel with my little crystal cube. And then we're going to add that to my ribbon. And here we have a super cute little green bob pouch with a wristlet that is completely lined on the inside. Beautiful fabric that coordinates with everything. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I tried to be as quick as possible, cutting out parts of the video so that we wouldn't take too terribly long. But follow those steps, step by step. Just make sure that you're laying the fabric just so, like the pattern calls for. And then once you're done, you'll have a gorgeous little denim pouch that you can carry and put anything that you want to in it to carry around and be super cute while you're doing it. All right. So thanks for joining us. This is Eve with the Baby's Booty, and we hope you have happy embroidering.